Okay, good morning, my dear students. Actually, this class I had to tell you on 21st. Certain internal adjustment. Dr. Nagabo's class is there. Today I am telling my class in spite of his class. Is there a simple adjustment? Okay, today we are going to know what is wrist drop, what is the injury of the sciatic nerve, in the gluteal region, injury of sciatic nerve, then we give intramuscular injection in the gluteal region and foot drop. These three. So now we are going first to wrist drop. Posterior aspect of the arm, posterior compartment of the arm is supplied by the posterior part of the brachial plexus. Anterior part is supplied by the anterior part of the brachial plexus. It is a general rule. So the anterior compartment, we can call it as a flexor compartment. In the posterior compartment, we can call it as an extensor compartment. So flexion action and extension actions on both sides compensate with each other according to the necessary. Flexion is more, flexion occurs. If extension is necessary, extension occurs. So, and both in a combined balancing manner. So, injury of radial nerve in the radial or spiral groove. So, wrist drop is associated with radial nerve injury. First point, you must know wrist drop is associated with radial nerve injury. So, the radial nerve injury can occur at three sites. Number one, in the axilla. Number one, in the radial or spiral groove. Just distal to the distal part of the radial or spiral groove. That is in arm. Then at the level of elbow. So the radial nerve is a part of posterior part of the brachial plexus. It is a nerve of extensor compartment and it can be injured at three sites. Number one, in the axilla. Number two, spiral groove or radial groove, distal part of the radial or spiral groove, just a distal part. And also in the elbow, radial nerve can be injured at the level of elbow. So three levels of injury can occur to the radial nerve. Radial nerve is a posterior compartment nerve body and it is an extensor nerve. So injury of radial nerve in the radial or spiral groove. Injury of radial nerve in the axilla. This is the axilla. And injury of radial nerve at the elbow level. So these three levels of injury can occur to the radial nerve. Number one, first injury can occur at the level of axilla. Why? For example, you see in olden days, the physically handicapped people used to have crutches in their axilla. Karla pettuko nadustuntaru sankallo chala mandi. So the crutch injury can cause radial nerve damage and leads to radial nerve injury and leads to wrist drop. Because the axilla is the highest point of radial nerve. So all the nerve supply, all the muscle supply below that area gets damaged if crutches, radial nerve at the axillary level is injured by using of crutches. This is otherwise called as crutch palsy because the injury is caused by the crutches. So it is called as crutch palsy. So if anybody asks you crutch palsy, it is caused by radial nerve injury in the axilla by using crutches. Now, the triceps muscle is an extensor of the elbow joint. triceps muscle is an extensor of the elbow joint. So paralyzed. So motor loss. So you can say motor loss, sensory loss, and cutaneous loss. You can divide the injury of radial nerve in three compartments. Number one, at the motor loss and sensory loss, or cutaneous sensory loss, cutaneous nerve supply loss. These three parameters, you can study the radial nerve injury at the axillary level, in the shaft of the spiral groove level, and also at the elbow level. So, whenever a nerve is injured, the nerve supply in the muscles below that injury will be damaged, but above does not alter. That means, if injury in the radial or spiral groove occurs, it is mid shaft level. So the triceps muscle escapes because the nerve supply from the radial nerve to the triceps arises above the spiral groove. So extension of the elbow is not much affected. Extension of the elbow is not much affected. For example, if axillary nerve is damaged in the axilla by using crutches, otherwise called as crutch palsy, if it occurs, so the triceps nerve supply is lost, so the extension of the elbow is lost. Whereas biceps brachii is a flexor compartment muscle of the arm. It has got insertion into the radial tuberosity. So supination is there and a little extension is there. So it is a supinator and a little extensor because of its rotation action. So the supination of the elbow is not affected by radial nerve injury at the axillary level. For example, if radial nerve is injured in the spiral groove, that is a very well below level than the axilla. This is the radial or spiral groove. This is the radial or spiral groove. This is the axilla because this level is a little lower. If the radial nerve is injured in the spiral groove because of mid-shaft fractures of humerus, then Saturday night palsy, because during Saturday nights, parties, alcohol intake and corrosive poisoning, etc., will cause to sleep in the chair itself by compressing, by putting hand like this, and this is called as, usually occurs on the Saturday, so it is called Saturday night palsy, because Saturday night palsy occurs in the just distal to the mid shaft level of the humerus, that is spiral groove. So this is called Saturday night palsy, occurs at this level, radial nerve injury at the mid shaft level, or in mid shaft fractures of the humerus also, the spiral groove, radial nerve present in the spiral groove may be damaged. So in such conditions, the triceps muscle gets its nerve supply above the spiral groove, so it will escape. So the extension of the elbow is not affected. Extension of the elbow is not affected. And so whenever axillary nerve at the radial nerve at the axilla level is damaged, so all extensor action of the radial nerve and the posterior extensor action on the wrist also lost, because radial nerve is injured at the axillary level and wrist drop occurs. So typical wrist drop occurs. So typical wrist drop occurs, complete wrist drop occurs whenever the radial nerve is injured at the axilla by crutch palsy. So injury of the radial nerve in the spiral groove will also cause wrist drop. Now, clinical features in such case will be loss of extension of wristed fingers. Why? The extensor muscle supplying the fingers, extensor digitorum longus, extensor pollicis longus, extensor indicis, extensor pollicis longus. These four muscles on the posterior compartment of the hand, they are giving tendons to the 5 digits of the 5 fingers. So, these muscle action is lost. So, the wrist drops because the extension action is lost. So, the flexion action is not counterbalanced by the extension. So, flexor action is dominated and the wrist drop occurs. and wrist drop occurs. So, loss of supination when the arm is extended. Loss of supination because whenever the elbow is kept in a bend manner only, supination is caused by the biceps brachii. Biceps brachii is a front muscle of the arm. So, it gets inserted into the radial tuberosity. So, whenever the elbow is like this, partly bent like this only, supination occurs. So, loss of supination when the arm is extended. So, loss of supination occurs when the arm is fully extended. Arm is extended in middle shaft fractures of the humerus or injury of radial nerve in the radial or spinal groove because nerve supply to the triceps is above that level. So, nerve supply to the triceps is above that level. So, loss of supination when the arm is extended occurs only. But loss of supination does not occur when the elbow is bent because the triceps muscle action is there. So this is the reason and analysis how the wrist drop occurs. This is the wrist drop resulting from radial nerve injury. This is the wrist drop resulting from radial nerve injury. Just like this. How I am putting it like this. This is from your standard textbook. Now injury of radial nerve at elbow. Now entrapment neuropathy of the deep branch of the radial nerve causes fibrous bands. So certain fibrous bands forms in the elbow, in the radial muscles, in the extensor carpi radialis muscle can cause compression of the radial deep branch of the radial nerve and causes entrapment neuropathy. For example, in carpal tunnel syndrome, medial nerve is going behind the flexor retinaculum. If that nerve is enlarged, the space is limited and entrapment neuropathy occurs. That leads to carpal tunnel syndrome when median nerve entrapment occurs. So here deep branch of the radial nerve is compressed between the fibrous bands, flexor carpi radialis brevis. And so this is the fibrous bands causing entrapment neuropathy of the deep branch of the radial nerve. And sharp tendinous margin of the extensor carpi radialis brevis. Now leaks of blood vessels from the radial recurrent artery can also cause compression of the radial nerve at the elbow, and arcade of fasciae also cause radial nerve injury at the elbow. These are the four types causes: fibrous bands, entrapment neuropathy at the deep branch of the radial nerve causes fibrous band, sharp and tendinous margin of the extensor carpi radialis brevis, leak of blood vessels from the radial recurrent artery, arcade of fasciae. These are the four causes for entrapment neuropathy of deep branch of the radial nerve at the elbow. Characteristic clinical features: loss of extension of wrist and fingers, but no wrist drop. Because I told you wrist drop, complete wrist drop occurs only when the radial nerve is damaged at the axillary level by crutches. So whenever the deep branch of the radial nerve is compressed by means of these entrapment neuropathies caused by the above mentioned causes, fibrous bands, leak of blood vessels, fasciae, and the entrapment neuropathy caused by the flexor carpi radialis brevis. So deep branch of radial nerve is only injured. So superficial branch of the radial nerve is not injured. So no wrist drop occurs. Pain over the extensor aspect of the forearm occurs. So characteristic clinical features: loss of extension of wrist and fingers occurs, but no wrist drop. Typically, this type of wrist drop does not occur when deep branch of the radial nerve is compressed at the elbow level. So this is the characteristic features of injury of radial nerve at the axillary level, at the midshaft level of the spiral groove or radial groove, and also at the elbow level. So these three causes loss of extension of wrist and fingers, but no wrist drop occurs when deep branch of the radial nerve is damaged or entrapped. That is the difference between wrist drop occurring at the Saturday night palsy and axillary level by the crutch palsy. Crutches are used in the axilla by physically handicapped people, especially poliomyelitis people in olden days. So this is the wrist drop. So injury for the radial nerve at three levels causing difference. So deep branch of the radial nerve is only compressed at the entrapment neuropathy at the radial nerve at the elbow level. It does not cause wrist drop, but there is loss of extension of fingers and wrist is also there in this one also. Now sciatic nerve injury during gluteal intramuscular injection. Whenever you go to wards, staff nurses or doctors will give injection at the upper arm and also to the gluteal region. Especially when children are not cooperative, they will give in the gluteal region. Intramuscular injection. Delivery of drug into the muscle. Then it is absorbed through the blood vessels present in the muscle and goes into the general circulation and goes into the entire body. That is the main principle behind the intramuscular injection. So you will give injection at 2 levels. Number 1 at the arm level, and number 2 at the gluteal region. So there is a common principle in every intramuscular injection. You should not cause neurovascular damage. You should not cause damage to the nerve or damage to the blood vessels. If nerve is damaged, the loss of function of muscles and neuropathy occurs below that nerve damage. The blood vessel is damaged, bleeding occurs, internal hemorrhage occurs in that muscle region, and fibrosis and others, a burning sensation will also occur in that region. This is a common principle. Wherever you give injection, intramuscular injection, you should avoid the neuromuscular bundle. At the same time, you should inject the needle into a certain extent into the muscle itself, into the muscle mass itself, to deliver the drug. These two are the two main principles. Why the gluteal muscle is preferred, gluteal region is preferred? Because it is bulky. We will give injection into the gluteus medius, but not into the gluteus maximus. So, gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, gluteus minimus. So, gluteus maximus is the outer muscle, gluteus medius is the middle muscle, and gluteus minimus is the another deep muscle. So, you will give injection into the gluteus medius. You can divide the gluteal region into 4 quadrants. You do a plus mark what the gluteal region, it divides the gluteal region into 4 quadrants. Upper, outer, upper medial, lower lateral, and lower medial. Upper, outer or upper lateral, upper medial, lower lateral, lower medial. 4 quadrants. This one, like this. On the gluteal region, if you draw like a plus mark. So, this is the upper and outer or upper lateral quadrant. So, you have to give intramuscular injection in the middle of the upper outer quadrant of the gluteal region. You can divide the gluteal region to 4 quadrants by making a plus mark. By keeping a plus mark or imagining a plus mark. You will give in the center of the upper and outer quadrant that goes to certain extent 3 to 5 millimeters depth goes into the between 3 to 5 millimeters. You have to give intramuscular injection that will go into the gluteus medius muscle, because at that area the sciatic nerve supply is not there, the blood vessels is not there. So you can escape. If you give an injection in the lower quadrants of the gluteus region, lower quadrants, irrationally, it will cause the sciatic nerve damage. For a better understanding, you have to see the sciatic nerve supply. Already you have completed your dissection. You once again go through the dissection manual, how the nerve supply, the sciatic nerve is there, where it origins, how it goes downwards. So you can, if you see the sciatic nerve, you can see divide the gluteal region to 4 quadrants. Upper outer quadrant is divided the sciatic nerve supply. So below major blood vessel is there. So if you give in the center of the upper outer quadrant of the gluteal region, that is the correct method. You have to give an injection deep into the muscle, 3 to 5 millimeters. For that, you have to use a needle. Minimum length of needle must be 5 millimeters. So it will be beyond 5 millimeters. So you have to give to a depth of 3 to 5 millimeters in the gluteus medius muscle and deposit the injection. Whenever you give an intramuscular injection, if you just aspirate backside, if the needle is present in the blood vessel, bleeding comes, then you should not inject it. If bleeding is not coming, then you can give an intramuscular injection safely. Before giving an intramuscular injection, you see, there must not be air present in the your needle or in the injection syringe tube. So there should not be any air in the needle, injection needle, or in the injection syringe tube. So just you give the intramuscular injection, just push the pistol a little back, if bleeding does not come, then you can directly load it. So if the patient complains when you are injecting a burning sensation, when you inject, when you start with injection, if the patient says that I am getting a burning sensation, sir, whenever you are depositing the drug, it indicates that the nerve is damaged. It indicates that the nerve is damaged. So no burning sensation should come when you are giving an injection. Only when you are depositing material into the muscle, so it will cause compression and a little pain can occur. Just, but it is not it is a tolerable pain. A very little pain will occur. But if the patient complains a severe pain when you are injecting, if the patient complains whenever you started injecting, so a burning sensation and neuropathy and etc., then it is a wrong method of injection and all the cited nerve is damaged and it is a medical legal case, you will be suited to a law. So when you are giving an injection in any region, whether it may be an intramuscular injection or IV injection, you have to clean the site where you are giving the injection. You have to sterilize the site with spirit because your injection needle is penetrating through the tissues. So the infection present in the superficial part of the skin can also enter into the deep region when you are penetrating the needle. So you have to clean the injection site with a spirit swab. You have to sterilize the area before giving an intramuscular injection. At the same time, it must be a proper site. It should avoid a neuromuscular damage. If the neuromuscular damage occurs, you are liable to be prosecuted and the patient will suffer a lot. If for any instance, if you have damaged the neurovascular bundle, then you have to give a treatment, physiotherapy, and you have to refer it to the surgeon. Okay? Drug is not properly absorbed. If the blood is bleeding occurs intramuscularly by damage of the blood vessel, so intramuscular bleeding, hemorrhage will occur, and the blood clot will appear in the muscle, and fibrosis and granulation formation will occur and will tamper the muscle contraction in that area. So all of these complications. So at the same time, it is more important for a medical student to know the site of injection and underlying anatomy where there is any neurovascular bundle is there, because it is an avoidable complication. If you are cared, you can avoid damage to your patient. You can also avoid any legal complications to you from the patients if they are damaged. So it is an avoidable complication. So you must know the correct methodology of injection, especially in all regions, but in the gluteal region, this is the topic present here. So you have to avoid complication. So it is an avoidable complication. It is only a medical mistake. It is only a doctor's mistake. It is an avoidable complication. If you select a proper site and give an intramuscular injection, so you will be safe and your patient will never scold you. If you cause damage, he will always scold you and he will go to the court. So these are all the that may not always resolve. So a paralysis or neuropathy that may not always resolve. It does not resolve. Then permanent damage. Sciatic nerve is a large nerve. It can be injured by wrong injection. Now we are going to the foot drop, wrist drop, radial nerve, foot drop in the foot. That is caused by the common peroneal nerve. So radial nerve, common peroneal nerve has got similar. So radial nerve is an extensor of the wrist end. supplies the extensor muscles. Common peroneal nerve supplies the dorsiflexors. So extension in foot is described as dorsiflexors and plantar flexion. Dorsiflexion means upward. Plantar flexion means downwards towards the ground. So common peroneal nerve injury causes loss of dorsiflexion. So foot drop will occur because plantar flexion is dominated. So this is the effect of injury of common peroneal nerve. A, foot drop. B, sensory loss in that area. This area is sensory loss. This colored one, blue colored one, is sensory loss. And foot drop will occur because normally the foot is like this. But in common peroneal nerve injury, foot drop will occur. Why the common peroneal nerve is injured? Common peroneal nerve winds round. The common peroneal nerve is a branch of sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve in the popliteal fossa or just above the popliteal fossa divides into common peroneal nerve lateral part and the tibial nerve medial part. Tibial nerve goes into the foot. Common peroneal nerve goes into the common peroneal compartment, bending round the head or neck of the fibula. So, head or neck of the fibula is the most exposed, most cutaneous part in the lower leg region. So, when the nerve winds around it, so it is liable to be injured during fractures of the head of the fibula or neck of the fibula. So, the common peroneal nerve will damage. So, radial nerve, it supplies extensor digitorum, extensor indicis, extensor pollicis longus, and extensor pollicis brevis. So, extensor muscles of the hand are supplied by the radial nerve, whereas extensor digitorum longus and extensor hallucis longus of foot toes are supplied by the common peroneal nerve. So, you have to observe the similarity between common peroneal nerve and the radial nerve. So, the radial nerve is there, common peroneal nerve in foot. Radial nerve in arm and common peroneal nerve in leg. Both corresponds with each other in function. That is extensor. This is also extensor. So, extensor digitorum longus and extensor hallucis longus of foot is supplied by the common peroneal nerve, and foot drop occurs due to paralysis of the anterior compartment of the leg. This causes loss of function of dorsiflexors of foot, loss of extension of toes due to paralysis of the extensor digitorum longus and extensor hallucis longus, loss of aversion of foot due to paralysis of the peroneus longus and brevis. They are avertors of the foot. So, loss of aversion of foot. Aversion means outward movement. Inversion means inward movement of foot at the ankle joint. There are two movements. Aversion, outward bend of the foot at the ankle. Inversion means inward bend of foot. So, loss of aversion of foot due to paralysis of peroneus longus and brevis. Both are avertors of the foot. So, peroneal compartment muscles is lost. So, by observing all of my lecture, by seeing the PowerPoint, you see common peroneal nerve supplies the dorsiflexors, dorsal flexors of the foot and also the peroneal compartment. So, it supplies the anterior compartment of the foot and peroneal compartment of the foot. Foot is divided into three parts: posterior compartment, peroneal compartment, anterior compartment. So, the anterior compartment and peroneal compartment of the foot both are supplied with the common peroneal nerve. So, common peroneal nerve injury at the head of the fibula or neck of the fibula, because that is most exposed part, to the most cutaneously exposed part. So, injury is more common, leads to common peroneal injury and loss of nerve supply to the dorsiflexors of the foot, extensor digitorum longus and extensor hallucis longus of foot, and peroneus longus and peroneus brevis of peroneal compartment or lateral compartment of the foot. So, these is the common peroneal nerve injury. Now, sensory loss. Sensory loss due to involvement of cutaneous branches on the anterolateral aspect of the leg and whole of the dorsum of the foot, except area supplied by the saphenous and sural nerve. Because the saphenous and sural nerves arises from the common peroneal nerve above the level of injury, that is neck of the fibula. Common peroneal nerve winds round the neck of the fibula, whereas sural nerves and saphenous nerve arises above that level, they are not associated with common peroneal nerve injury. So this occurs. If this occurs, you are not able to hold the footwear. So whenever you wear your shoes or others, they cannot hold the foot, and you are unable to lift the foot. You are unable to hold the foot. You are unable to lift the foot. You are unable to hold the foot. In such condition, whenever your dorsiflexion of the foot is lost, because dorsiflexion movement is also necessary, you have to stand on the, not on the heels, you have to stand on the toes only. So, common peroneal nerve injury, dorsiflexors and peroneal compartment function is lost. So, a limping gait will occur. Limping gait will occur. So, a limping gait will occur. So, you cannot run properly, you can walk, but in a limping gait. So, this occurs because of common peroneal nerve injury. So, in the next class on 29, that's my clinical class, I will tell you the facial nerve palsy and etc. So, now on 27, I am taking the class of that Jyotirmayi, that is brachial plexus. Already I repeated you, and now for the upper lip, I am taking class. Yeah? Thank you very much. You are now 95. Thank you very much for your kind cooperation. Now the time is 1 o'clock. Already I started early. Thank you very much for your patient work. Okay? Wish you best of luck.
What I do?
What I do, sir?